Hello everybody, I'm meteorologist Don Day with your Public Lands Council weekly weather update for this November 11th, 2023. Can you believe we're in the month of November already? This update is being brought to you by WSR Insurance Services Incorporated and also by Ag Risk Advisors. Well, in the past week, we had that Arctic outbreak and snow and some very cold temperatures for a lot of the U.S., but now Pacific air is replacing that. So milder Pacific air is going to spread west to east across the United States this weekend into early next week, bringing generally a warming trend and milder conditions for most areas. Now, there will be one area, though, that will be wet. That'll be the Pacific Northwest, the far northern Rockies and far northern plains, and southern and southwest Canada. They're going to be looking at rain and snow as really strong and moist jet stream winds move into those areas there. Now, a colder, more active pattern for the western U.S. will develop the middle to the end parts of next week. It doesn't look like anything major, but by the middle of next week, some areas of rain and snow and colder weather will get a little further south and east across the central Rockies and central high plains for a bit of a change. And we're looking at the second half of November likely to turn colder and be more active. In the last week, this is where the rains and the snows have fallen. You can see some really nice moisture across parts of the southern plains and the Corn Belt here in the form of rain. Then up here, this has been all mostly snow, and most of this fell this past weekend. And then we had the rains beginning to move into the Pacific Northwest, and it's going to be these northern areas here over the next week that are going to be the most wet. These are the areas that got the most white. Over the last 2 weeks, snow has certainly gotten further south across the United States. Significant snows across Montana, North Dakota, across the mountains and central areas of Colorado, the first significant snows of the season in many areas. And here's the cold. This has flipped the script. The last time we showed you a map like this, it was nothing but orange. It was warm. But that Arctic outbreak we were discussing at this time last week certainly overspread a lot of the central and western United States, bringing a real chill to the area for the end of October. And as we head into the week ahead, we are going to see areas of rain and snow spread across the Pacific Northwest, then into the central and northern Rockies by the middle of the week. But notice the jet stream is still riding fairly far north. So the southern tier, the desert Southwest, the southern Rockies, southern plains will continue at least through the middle of next week to be dry. Out further, this is towards November 15th. This is what we talked about, the middle to the end of November being colder. It does look like the middle to the end of the month, the door will open to more storms off the North Pacific and across the Arctic, and that will lead to colder weather for the second half of November and a more active pattern. In the next week, it's going to be the most wet here in the Pacific Northwest. Western Washington and Oregon going to do very well, but eastern parts of Washington and Oregon, parts of Idaho, going to see significant moisture. The Yellowstone Plateau, the mountains of western and northwestern Wyoming, eastern Idaho will get some snow. Then we're going to see generally scattered shower activity elsewhere. This precipitation here could be part of an area of low pressure that will develop late next week and towards next weekend, and that's where we start to get into a more active weather pattern. And over the next week, this is where the snow will fall, the heavier snow across southern Canada, but you can see the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest mountains, and then eventually later in the week, maybe the Colorado and Wyoming mountains will start to get into the active snow again, and maybe even some precipitation for parts of New Mexico and Arizona. Our next update will be November 11th. Have a great week ahead.